Most people will quit long before they ever see the fruits of their labor. That's the harsh truth. 97% of people surrender their dreams, and only 3% press forward into greatness. The difference between the quitter and the winner isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't background or circumstance. It is a relentless, burning decision. I will not stop until the vision in my mind becomes the reality in my life. Think about it. Every skyscraper piercing the sky was once a fragile sketch on paper. Every empire was once just an idea whispered into the ears of skeptics. Edison failed 10,000 times before the light bulb glowed. Ford was laughed at when he said he would build a car for the masses. Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. Carnegie began in poverty, working in a factory for a few cents a day. Lincoln lost election after election before ever becoming president. What made them different? They refused to join the 97%. They chose to walk with the 3%. The builders, the believers, the visionaries who bend reality to their will. The 97% quit because the road is rough. They crave the prize, but cannot endure the process. They want comfort, not conquest. They want applause before effort, recognition before mastery, wealth before wisdom. And when resistance appears, they crumble. The 3%, they embrace resistance. They see obstacles as the price of admission to greatness. They understand that pressure is what forms the diamond. Fire is what purifies the gold. And storms are what test the strength of the ship. Look around at the lives of those who quit. Endless cycles of regret, living for weekends, numbing themselves with distractions, envying the brave, but never becoming them. And then look at the lives of those who win. They build, they grow, they stretch, they fail, they rise again. They create wealth, not just in money, but in spirit. They live with purpose carved deep into their bones. They leave legacies that echo long after they're gone. The difference begins in the mind. The 97% feed themselves doubt, telling themselves stories of why it can't be done. They chain themselves with fear, worry about judgment, and measure their worth against the opinions of others. The 3% feed themselves belief. They train their minds like warriors, guarding every thought, planting seeds of faith, repeating to themselves, if one human being can do it, then so can I. They understand that the mind is both a prison and a palace, and they choose to make it their palace. You must decide right now where you belong. Will you walk the beaten path of the 97%, where excuses are abundant and dreams are scarce? Or will you carve your name among the few, the relentless, the uncommon? You see, quitting is easy. That's why most do it. But greatness requires you to endure seasons of drought before the harvest comes. It requires you to wake up when the bed begs you to sleep. It requires you to persist when the results are invisible, when the applause is absent, when the progress feels microscopic. Winners understand that every step, no matter how small, compounds. They understand that the universe responds not to wishes, but to unwavering commitment. Ask yourself, when you are tired, when you are discouraged, when you are on the brink of giving up, will you surrender your future to the weakness of the moment? Or will you rise, fueled by the very adversity that seeks to destroy you? The 3% win because they know pain is temporary. but quitting lasts a lifetime. They know that destiny belongs to those who refuse to bow before difficulty. There will come a day when your body aches, your mind screams, and every voice around you tells you it's over. That is the crossroads. That is where the 97% retreat into mediocrity and the 3% breakthrough into destiny. The world remembers those who pressed forward, not those who surrendered. The torch of progress is always passed to the hands of the resilient. So I ask you, what will your story be? Will you be remembered as one of the countless who quit, or as one of the rare who rose? The choice is not made once in a lifetime. It is made every single day in the quiet battles when no one is watching. Winners are not crowned in arenas. They are forged in solitude, in discipline, in sacrifice. The truth is, victory doesn't belong to the strongest or the fastest. It belongs to the one who endures. Success is not a lightning strike. It is a slow, grinding fire that burns away weakness until only steel remains. The 97% quit because they mistake delay for denial. They want instant gratification, not long-term transformation. They want the trophy without the training, the harvest without the planting, the reward without the sacrifice. But life does not yield to the impatient. Life bows only to those who prove they can wait, work, and withstand. Think of the farmer. He plants his seed in spring and tends to it through the dry summer, the storms, the weeds. The field often looks barren for months. No applause, no sign of life. And yet, beneath the soil, roots are forming, foundations are being set. The 97% would abandon the field saying, it's useless, nothing is happening. But the 3% water, nurture, protect. And when harvest season comes, they reap what others were too impatient to wait for. Success is the same. The invisible work always precedes the visible reward. This is why discipline is the weapon of the 3%. Discipline is doing what must be done, especially when you don't feel like doing it. It is waking up when sleep whispers louder than purpose. It is choosing growth over comfort, action over hesitation, vision over distraction. Discipline is the great separator. Talent fades, motivation fluctuates, but discipline endures. And every act of discipline compounds until the extraordinary becomes inevitable. The 97% allow emotions to govern their lives. They act only when they feel inspired, only when conditions are perfect, only when the path is easy. The 3% act regardless of feeling. They master their emotions, turning fear into fuel, doubt into determination, failure into feedback. They understand what Marcus Aurelius once wrote. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It is this mastery of self that makes the 3% unstoppable. Because when you govern your inner world, the outer world begins to bend. Circumstances, setbacks, opinions, they no longer hold the same power. A man or woman who has conquered their own mind cannot be conquered by the world. This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Conceive it in vision. Believe it with unshakable faith. Act on it with discipline, and the world will rearrange itself to match the image in your mind. But let's be clear, the road of the 3% is not free of pain. In fact, It is lined with more trials, more rejections, more lonely nights than most can bear. The 97% quit because they view pain as punishment. The 3% endure because they view pain as a teacher. They understand that hardship carves strength, that every scar is proof of survival, and every setback is preparation for the next victory. Think of Abraham Lincoln. He lost his job, failed in business, lost multiple elections, suffered personal tragedy, and yet he persisted. History remembers not his defeats, but his resilience. Or Thomas Edison, who said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Imagine if he had quit at 100 tries, or 1,000. The 97% would have. But Edison belonged to the 3. Understand this: your vision will be tested. The universe will demand proof of how much you truly want it. You will be asked to sacrifice comfort, to walk alone, to labor in silence. And when you stand firm, when you refuse to bend, life begins to open doors invisible to the weak. That is when you separate yourself forever from the 97%. Winners are not made in moments of ease. They are revealed in moments of trial. The 97% look at obstacles and say, "It's too hard." The 3% look at the same mountain and say, "This is the path." They understand that the climb is what makes the summit meaningful. A peak reached without struggle has no glory, but the peak reached after blood, sweat, and perseverance, that becomes a throne, a place where destiny crowns the relentless. So ask yourself, what mountain are you avoiding because the climb looks too steep? What dream have you buried because the effort feels too great? Remember, the 97% quit not because the dream was impossible, but because they lacked the will to endure the climb. The 3% win not because they are superhuman, but because they refuse to quit. If you are willing to embrace discipline, to welcome resistance, to rise each time you fall, you will discover something extraordinary. The world is not controlled by chance. It is controlled by persistence, and persistence belongs to the 3%. The greatest tragedy is not failure. The greatest tragedy is to abandon the life you were meant to live, because the journey asked too much of you. Most people bury their dreams not in cemeteries, but in routines, endless cycles of distraction, procrastination, and excuses. They surrender to the 97% and call it realistic. But let me tell you the truth. Realism is often just another word for surrender. The world does not reward the realistic. It rewards the bold, the dreamers who dare to stretch beyond what others call possible. The 97% will say, be careful, don't dream too big, play it safe. They will hand you their fear, gift wrapped as wisdom, but you must reject it. Playing it safe never built empires. Playing it safe never created masterpieces. Playing it safe never changed history. Those who win, those who step into the 3%, are the ones who dare to walk where the ground feels unsteady, who dare to imagine a future so vivid it frightens them, and then have the courage to pursue it anyway. Clarity is the compass of the 3%. They know exactly what they want, and they burn their ships so there is no retreat. They write their vision down. They see it in their mind before it exists in reality. They breathe it, they feel it, they live in it before it ever arrives. The 97% wander aimlessly, living on autopilot, hoping chance will deliver them to a destination they never defined. But drifting has never led anyone to greatness. Only definite purpose, only crystal clarity creates destiny. Andrew Carnegie once said that the first step toward success is to set a definite goal and back it with burning desire. Napoleon Hill echoed the same truth. Without a definite chief aim, life becomes wasted potential. The 3% wake each day knowing their aim, reciting it, visualizing it, aligning every decision with it. The 97% wake up reacting to alarms, to problems, to other people's demands. Winners live by design. Quitters live by default. And yet, clarity without action is nothing but a dream. This is where most people fall. They dream, they plan, they talk. But when it's time to act, they freeze. Fear whispers louder than faith. They wait for perfect conditions, which never come. Meanwhile, the 3% step forward, even in uncertainty. They move while others hesitate. They understand that clarity grows stronger through action, that the road appears only to those willing to walk. Think of Walt Disney, fired from a job for lacking creativity. He had no investors, no resources, only a vision of a mouse and a dream of magic. Most would have quit after one rejection, let alone 100. But Disney belonged to the 3%. He acted on his vision, one frame at a time, one risk at a time, until the world was forced to believe what he already knew. Action feeds belief. Belief fuels persistence. Persistence produces results. This cycle belongs to the 3%. The 97% break it because they stop acting the moment belief wavers. They let fear freeze them, let doubt paralyze them. But winners know that the antidote to fear is movement. You cannot think your way into courage. You act your way into it. And then there is gratitude, the quiet strength of the 3%. While most complain about what they lack, winners are grateful for what they have. Gratitude shifts the mind from scarcity to abundance, from despair to hope. It is impossible to quit when you see every challenge as a gift, every obstacle as an opportunity, every setback as a stepping stone. Gratitude is not weakness, it is fuel. It keeps the fire burning when circumstances try to smother it. The 97% resent their struggles. The 3% are grateful for them. They understand that storms are what teach a sailor how to command the seas. They know that resistance is what makes the muscles grow, both physical and spiritual. Gratitude transforms pain into purpose, loss into lesson, and failure into foundation. And perhaps the most defining trait of the 3% is adaptability. They bend without breaking. When the plan collapses, they create another. When the door closes, they build their own. They don't quit because one method failed. They adjust, they innovate, they persist. History is filled with men and women who refused to be caged by failure. They understood what Darwin wrote. Survival is not for the strongest, but for those most adaptable to change. When others saw obstacles, Henry Ford saw opportunity. He faced bankruptcy multiple times, faced rejection from investors, faced ridicule from experts, and yet he adapted, improved, persisted. Eventually, He revolutionized transportation and industry forever. Winners are not those who never stumble. Winners are those who never stay down. Remember this, the 97% quit because they see life as happening to them. The 3% win because they see life as happening for them. This shift in perspective changes everything. Where most see problems, they see preparation. Where most see loss, they see lessons. Where most see endings, they see beginnings. So I ask you again, are you willing to pay the price that 97% of people are not? Are you willing to trade comfort for growth, excuses for execution, fear for faith? Because if you are, then you are already separating yourself. You are already stepping into the ranks of the uncommon. The road is not crowded at the top. It is quiet, it is lonely, but it is glorious. Most will never know that view because they quit on the climb. But if you endure, if you persist, if you believe, then one day you will stand there and you will know in your soul that you belong to the 3% who refused to surrender. When you look at the story of every great achiever, you will see one common thread: resilience. Life knocked them down, but they refused to stay down. They did not quit when everything seemed lost. They did not surrender when others mocked them. They did not abandon their vision when the world told them it was impossible. Resilience is the backbone of the 3%. Abraham Lincoln lost more battles than he won before he ever became president. He buried children, endured deep depression, suffered political humiliation. Yet he stood and stood again until destiny could no longer ignore him. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, stripped of freedom, beaten, isolated. Yet he emerged unbroken. His spirit sharper than steel, ready to lead a nation. Helen Keller was blind and deaf, cut off from the world of sight and sound. Yet she became a voice of power, an inspiration that still echoes today. What allowed them to rise while 97% would have surrendered? They understood that adversity was not their enemy. Adversity was their ally. Pain sharpened their focus. Delay fortified their patience. Struggle strengthened their resolve. And every time they rose, they proved to themselves and to the world that nothing could break a soul that refused to quit. The 97% make comfort their goal. They see discomfort as something to avoid. But the 3% know that comfort is a trap, a slow poison that dulls ambition and weakens spirit. Growth is always born in discomfort. The gym burns before the muscles grow. The classroom confuses before wisdom forms. The business drains you before it pays you. The vision tests you before it rewards you. The 97% run from discomfort, and in doing so, they run from greatness. You must learn to fall in love with the grind, to find meaning in the struggle, to see resistance as proof you are on the right path. Mountains are not placed in your way to stop you. They are placed to show you how high you are capable of climbing. Every obstacle whispers the same question: how badly do you want this? The 97% whisper back, not enough. The 3% roar, more than anything. And let us not forget the power of learning. Winners are lifelong students. They devour knowledge, seek mentors, analyze failures, and study success. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years interviewing the most successful men of his time. because he understood that wisdom leaves clues. The 97% think they already know enough. They close their minds, defend their ignorance, cling to old habits. But the 3% stay curious, hungry, open. They understand that ignorance is the enemy of progress, and knowledge applied with action is the weapon of victory. Carnegie built his empire not by being the smartest man in the room, but by surrounding himself with people who knew more than he did. Henry Ford once said he was not a genius, but he knew how to gather men who were. Winners do not need to know everything. They need to remain teachable, adaptable, willing to evolve. But knowledge without faith is powerless. Faith is the invisible force that carries you when evidence is scarce. Faith is what whispers, "Keep going," when results have not yet appeared. Faith is the bridge between the vision in your mind and the reality in your hands. Without faith, the 97% collapse under the weight of uncertainty. With faith, the 3% walk on water. And it is this faith, combined with discipline, resilience, and vision, that creates legacies. Because the ultimate measure of the 3% is not what they gain, but what they leave behind. Wealth fades, titles vanish, achievements gather dust. But the impact you have on others, the example you set, the fire you ignite in those who follow, that is immortality. Think of Edison. He gave the world light. Think of Carnegie. He gave the world libraries. Think of Lincoln. He gave the world freedom. Think of Mandela. He gave the world reconciliation. These men and women are gone, but their legacies breathe in every classroom, every constitution, every mind they inspired. That is the true victory of the 3%. They do not just win for themselves. They win for generations. And here is the secret most never understand. You have that same power within you. The same blood that ran through their veins runs through yours. The same human spirit, the same capacity for courage, faith, persistence, lives in you. The only question is whether you will awaken it or whether you will bury it alongside the 97%. Because make no mistake, the 97% quit because it is easy. But in taking the easy path, they trade their potential for regret. The 3% endure the hard path, but in doing so, they trade their struggle for glory. And one day, when the end comes for us all, when the final page of your story is written, you will not care how comfortable you were. You will care whether you lived with courage, whether you gave your all, whether you left a mark that cannot be erased. That is why only 3% win, not because they are chosen, not because they are gifted, but because they chose to fight one more round, to rise one more time, to believe one more day. The clock is ticking. Every day, every hour, every moment, you are writing the story of your life. And one day, long after you are gone, that story will either be forgotten like the millions who quit, or remembered like the few who refused to break. The 97% fade into silence because they never dared to sing their song. The 3% live on forever because they sang until the world could not ignore their voice. Understand this: greatness is not reserved for the privileged. It is not locked away for the chosen. Greatness is available to every human being who is willing to pay the price. The universe does not play favorites. It responds to persistence, to faith, to discipline to vision. The 97% fail not because they lacked opportunity, but because they lacked endurance. The 3% win not because life was easy, but because they refused to bow when life was hard. You must decide today, right now, who you are. Will you be another face in the crowd, or will you rise to join the ranks of the relentless? Will you die with your dreams still trapped inside you, or will you pour them into the world, no matter the cost? Will you settle for average, or will you fight for extraordinary? This is not about money alone, though wealth will follow the committed. This is not about fame alone, though recognition will follow the persistent. This is about purpose. This is about living a life that sets your soul on fire. A life where you wake each day knowing that your existence matters, that your struggle means something, that your journey is not wasted. The 97% quit because they never found their why. They drift, they chase shallow pleasures, they drown in distractions. But the 3% wake with purpose etched into their bones. They know why they rise. They know why they endure. Purpose is the anchor that holds them steady in storms, the compass that guides them in darkness, the fire that keeps burning when the night is long. And make no mistake, the night will be long. You will face seasons when progress feels invisible, when prayers feel unanswered, when the dream feels distant. You will question yourself. You will doubt. You will cry. But if your why is strong enough, you will not quit. You will stand, bruised but unbroken, weary but unyielding, and you will whisper through the tears, I will not stop. I will not join the 97%. I will win. That is the moment destiny bends. That is the moment the world shifts. That is the moment you cross the invisible line from average to extraordinary. Because life always breaks you before it crowns you. And only those who refuse to quit are found worthy of the crown. Think of the legacy you want to leave. Imagine the day when your grandchildren or their grandchildren speak your name. Will they say you quit when life became hard? Or will they say you stood tall, you fought, you built something that outlived you? Every action you take, every choice you make is carving that legacy right now. The 97% never think beyond the moment. The 3% live for eternity. So here's the truth. You were not born to be ordinary. You were not born to live and die unnoticed. Inside you burns the same spark that ignited every great leader, every innovator, every visionary who ever walked this earth. That spark is waiting, begging, demanding to be set ablaze. The 97% will smother it with excuses. The 3% will feed it with faith, discipline, persistence, vision, and purpose until it becomes a wildfire that lights up the world. Do not quit, not when you are tired, not when you are afraid, not when the world doubts you, not when progress is slow, not when you feel alone. Because every second you persist, you separate yourself further from the 97%. Every step you take brings you closer to the life you were born to live. Every breath you fight for takes you deeper into the ranks of the uncommon. And when the day comes, and it will, when you stand at the summit, looking down at the climb you thought might kill you, you will know the truth. The pain was worth it. The struggle was worth it. The loneliness, the doubt, the rejection, the failure, all of it was the price of admission to a life only the few will ever taste. And you will taste it because you refused to quit. That is why 97% quit and 3% win. Not because of destiny, not because of luck, but because of choice. Daily, deliberate, relentless choice. So choose. Choose to rise when others stay down. Choose to persist when others surrender. Choose to believe when others doubt. Choose to fight one more round, to take one more step, to breathe one more breath of faith. Choose to be the 3%. Because if you do, the world will never forget your name. If you refuse to quit, hit that subscribe button and join the 3%.